Picture this. You're looking down a dimly lit hallway lined wall to wall with metal cages. Sarah McLaughlin is playing in the background. You hear whimpers and cries echoing throughout the halls. In each cage, there's a pair of pleading eyes calling out to you for rescue. Many of the inhabitants will never see the light of day, scheduled to be euthanized. Each year, approximately 1.5 million shelter animals are euthanized. That's over 4,100 animals a day. And if you want to break that down even further, it equals out to 170 animals euthanized every hour. Today, I'd like to spend a little bit of time going over why I believe adopting can be more beneficial over purchasing a pet from a pet store or a local breeder. While there is nothing wrong with wanting a purebred animal, I for one have always been a fan of adopting from an animal shelter over purchasing from a pet shop or a local breeder. But I do understand why some people prefer to purchase from the store or a local breeder. One inoculation that goes along with my topic of choice is that some people believe store-bought animals are of higher quality over animals in the shelter. I'm also going to go over the percentage of cats and dogs euthanized each year and the stigma that shelter animals are broken or bad animals. To start us off, let's go over some misconceptions and the reality of pet store and local bred animals being of higher quality over shelter animals. A lot of families in search of that perfect family pet believe that they need the young, new puppy from the pet store over the older, secondhand dog from the shelter. As enticing as a new puppy may seem, most of these businesses get their stocks from puppy mills, where a large portion of them are mistreated. There is also the belief that shelter animals are depressing compared to pet store animals. While there are always exceptions to the rules, most puppies and kittens from pet shops are taken from their mothers at a very young age. And the mothers of these animals are probably in small wired cages with multiple health problems from overbreeding. I don't know about you, but I think that sounds more depressing. Lastly, I believe the biggest misconception circling shelter animals is that people believe that they can predict the behavior and temper of a shelter animal or a purebred animal. I cannot stress this enough. There are no guarantees that a purebred animal will be gentle or that a shelter animal will be gentle. Each animal will have their own good and bad qualities, and to classify pure breeds and shelter animals leads me to believe that some people are very closed-minded on the subject. While there will always be inoculations for shelter pets, let's go over the percentage of cats and dogs euthanized each and every year. With a show of hands, how many of you could have guessed the amount of shelter animals euthanized each year? The number's probably a lot higher than you could have imagined. 1.5 million. Let that sink in. If any of you here have adopted from an animal shelter before, I'm sure this topic is already pulling on your heartstrings and possibly persuading you to go to the animal shelter after work today to help save another innocent life. Of the 1.5 million shelter animals euthanized each year, cats have the highest rate. The main reason for why the number of cats being euthanized is so high is because they enter the shelters with no owner identification. As I'm sure you also could have guessed, elderly animals also have a high euthanized rate as well. Older animals are more likely to be put down due to the fact that they have health concerns or that they have less appeal over the puppy 3 cages down from them. The thing that makes my skin crawl the most is that most of the animals in animal shelters were once pets that were surrendered from their families. Pets who were once so loved, or so we can only hope, are now being looked over because they have been placed in the animal shelter. The rest are either strays, local transfers, wildlife, or out-of-state transfers. The last thing I'd like to go over today is the stigma that shelter animals are broken or bad animals. Taking on the responsibility of a new pet is a lot. You always want that perfect fit for your family, and some families believe that you can only do that from purchasing from a shelter or a local breeder because they believe that pet shelter animals are broken or bad, or they want that sheet of paper stating that they have the best of the best. Every single animal shelter, from the Humane Society to the ASPCA, their animals are admitted by experienced staff members and are given vaccinations upon arrival. Every animal in the pet shelter is up to date on their shots, and they've also had chips inserted in case they were to escape out of the house or to possibly run away. All animals entered through shelters also go through a behavioral screening process, so that worry you had earlier about the tempers of a shelter animal is now gone. The thing I love about shelter animals the most is that these animals have more experience with life, and they have tales to tell and how they've responded with courage. Each of them has their own story to tell. Each of them has their own unique story to tell that may not be as happy as the next, but you can bet that when they get adopted, that they get to live their happily ever after with a family that will love them immensely. Before I leave you today, I have a couple of requests for you to consider. My smaller, more reasonable request would be, before going to a pet store, take a stroll down the halls of an animal shelter and give those animals a chance to win over your heart. Now, my larger request. When considering a new pet, consider adoption to be your first choice. I did, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you.